Hello.
This is Culture Hang, and we're bringing you a hot new episode.
A hot new episode from the past.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot and spicy. Super spicy. How's everyone's week been?
Everyone's week's been okay here, I think.
Anyone else?
Any ghosts?
Yeah, go on.
I've realised that I need to stop listening to true crime.
Yeah.
Because I've managed to go through the backlog of this whole true crime podcast, and there's like 100. It's like 4 years worth of true crime, and I was like,
oh wow,
back to back listening to it. They were great. It's called Red Handed. Recommend. However, a few nights ago, I had the most disturbing dream I have ever had. So I'm gonna definitely say her name wrong, but I love her. She's is it Sigourney Weaver?
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
Sigourney, as I...
It's a hard name. I would never mock you for that, because I get names wrong weekly on this podcast.
And so it was like, my dad was in my dream, my dad was watching this horror film on Netflix, and because I was such a scaredy cat, still am, of horror films, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to open my laptop and there's going to be this horror film still playing, and I don't want anything to do with it. So I was like, in my dream, I clicked to the very end and watched like the credit scene. But in this credit scene, this montage of this man appeared. And he kind of, I think in my head what was the guy who was in Fast and Furious that died? Paul
Walker?
Yes.
Is that his name?
But it wasn't Paul Walker, but it was somebody I think my brain associated as Paul Walker. So I was like, oh, it's that guy that died. He must have died halfway through filming. I've got to find out what they did in the film. So I watched this. I was like trying to do the thing where I like cover the bits of the screen I don't want to see to like hide the horror. And so basically Sigourney Weaver was in this like threesome relationship with these people. Don't know what that says about my internal brain.
Know, but love that.
We love it. We've, polyamory.
Yeah.
Do you.
You do you.
So, but I think he was supposed to be the serial killer.
Yeah.
The guy that died halfway through filming. So they'd like had to change the whole plot. So Sigourney Weaver became the serial killer, but she was killing people and skinning them to make skin suits.
Was it vivid? Was it a vivid dream?
I can still see it in my brain now. And I woke up, I forced myself to wake up, and I was like, right, you've just got to read something innocuous. So I was reading a romance novel at like 3:30 in the morning, because I was like, you just need to get the images. Like, because I was like, I tried to wake up and go back to sleep, but my brain was like, no, you are living through this. You are not finding a way to come out of this alive. So I need to stop listening to true crime.
I get that. I feel I had a dream this week that I feel will mellow you out, because it's very much the opposite of that. And it involved me.
Yes.
Zac Efron.
Incredible.
Vanessa Hudgens and Selena Gomez.
Oh my god.
Don't know why. Don't know where they came from.
Disney Channel reunion.
Yeah. But basically, we were trying to expose a criminal. We were being hunted by a criminal. We were trying to expose him. So we were searching around what was my house, but it was expanded into a mansion. And there was a massive lake.
Hannah actually lives in a mansion. She just doesn't. She's just trying to be humble brag.
I do live in a mansion, but this was an even bigger mansion. So I only live in a teeny mansion. Like, we've only got 7 bedrooms, and we've not even got a pool. So it's
doesn't even count.
Yeah, it doesn't even count. If it's not got a pool, not a mansion. So there was a pond at the end of the garden. I was looking for clues about this criminal. It was on a time schedule, because we were trying to escape him but also expose him. And Zach's looking. Vanessa, such a diva. Selena also looking. I was doing the worst job, because in real life, outside of my dream, I want to buy a pair of Doc Martens, which Holly knows. I'm trying to save up money for it.
Yeah.
So that had translated into my dream as me finding a bunch of £20 notes
Oh.
just everywhere. So it was going really well for me. So I kept just pocketing a bunch of £20 notes. Don't know whose they were. And as I'm doing that, I look outside. Selena and Vanessa are at the pond, which is at the end of this massive garden. And I see Selena start to drown.
Oh.
So I've run out to try and help, but I kind of midway through, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to stop this, so I just walk. Sorry, Selena. Zach runs out first. He's got his Baywatch training. He gets there.
Amazing.
By the time I get there, he's saved Selena. But Vanessa is just sobbing uncontrollably on a chair, and Selena's comforting her. And I'm like, I go over to him like, Vanessa. I think this is based in Vanessa's recent coronavirus video.
Yeah, because Coachella got cancelled.
Yeah. Go watch it if you don't know. This is
it's
kind of
awful.
how I'm imagining her.
Like, people are gonna die, but that's, like, inevitable.
I hate the way she said it. Since when did she talk like that? Anyway, Vanessa is crying on a chair. Selena rolls her eyes at me. I'm thinking, yeah, I know, this is a nightmare. I'm like, Vanessa, what is wrong with you? Zach's comforting her because they've got a thing, but little does she know, me and Zach have also got a thing in the stream. She's not aware of that.
Of course.
Everyone's sort of rolling their eyes at Vanessa. I'm like, Vanessa, what's wrong? She's like, oh, Selena was drowning and I couldn't even save her. And everyone's just like, you didn't even try. I watched from the... I mean, I know I didn't try, but I'm not crying. So I take Selena to go and get some logs for the fire, and we both just sort of have, like, talk about Vanessa behind a bed and how I would be much better for Zach. So that was the end of that. Two very different dreams. Holly's living her nightmare. I'm living the dream.
You're living the dream. I love, like, you're living a literal Disney plot, a Disney Channel plot.
I don't know if I fancy Zac Efron.
Do you mean like now?
Or
ever?
There's times in my life where I have.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I fully haven't. I don't think I loved it when he had bleached blonde hair about last year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the last image I have in my mind of him. But when he had... I don't mean him as Ted Bundy, but while he was filming Ted Bundy, I thought that was a nice...
The 70s aesthetic. It's just a good look.
Have you watched his, like, Netflix show?
I have not. Didn't he nearly die filming it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if that's the same show, but I think apparently in one of the episodes he eats pasta and cries.
Pasta?
Pasta. Because, like, he had to restrict himself on diets for a long time, you know, because of the pressures of Hollywood. And he didn't have pasta for so long, and he eats it, and it's such an experience that he cries. And I relate to that.
I have had times where all I've wanted is pasta, or pasta is so good, it just hits the spot, unlike anything else.
Holly, you have cried over a food.
You can expose...
Do you want to tell us that story?
So, I should have known that this year was going to be a bad year, because this was literally probably like, a week and a half before lockdown and before everything went to shit.
Yeah.
And I was just having a bad day. I was stressed out. I don't know what was going on in my brain.
It was just one of those weeks, I think. It was not a good one.
It's not a good vibe. But the only thing that I was on my period, and the only thing that's going to bring me comfort was this meal deal, ginormous pizza from Tesco. And you got dips, and we got chocolate fudge cake with it.
Also, we've definitely talked about this deal on the podcast before, which shows how much we just... One, love a deal. Two, love a pizza.
Love a pizza. And so I had all these toppings on it. I'd got it ready, and I was just like, I'm just going to eat this pizza, and it will make me feel better. And then I didn't balance it well, or I put it too close to the counter edge, and I didn't get to it in time as it slid off counter and upside down onto the disgusting kitchen floor. Because if you've ever been in any student accommodation, whether it's a house or anything, you will know it is filthy. It is.
Yeah.
No matter how clean,
especially the floor.
We are.
Like we didn't have the facilities to clean a floor to the extent that, like, your cleanest floor will be clean.
We didn't have a mop, which means the people before us didn't have a mop. So who knows when that floor was last clean. So picture it, I'm in like 5 layers of pyjamas because the house was so cold.
You were in a lot of pyjamas. That is one of the things I remember. I feel like you were in like 2 fleecy tops.
2 fleecy tops because it was so cold in the house.
And like big sleep socks as well.
And picking up this sad pizza and having this really supportive chorus of all my housemates going, it's fine. You just, it didn't land too much on the floor. Like, if you just sweep it up, if you just, like, clear up a little bit.
That is what we said originally until the floor was wiped. And it came up black.
It was disgusting. I don't think I've ever... And I was like, I can't eat that. But I was like, at this point, I'm ready to cry. Because it was just the thing that tipped me over the edge. But I was like, don't be stupid. Don't cry over pizza. So I went into the toilet, tried to compose myself, had a little cry, and then I came back down. Everyone's so worried about me. Emily's been texting me being like, are you okay?
Emily texted you?
Yeah, she was like, and I got big hugs and they held me as I cried over my pizza.
What did you end up eating?
Well, that was the other thing you got with the deal. You got, like, the little side, so it was like a garlic bread. So I still got some sort of dough.
A small garlic bread, though.
It was really good. It was small.
They are good, though, yeah.
But I was just like, I can't eat this off the floor, even though I'm at that low point.
Yeah, and I think what made it sadder is you'd not just put the pizza in the oven, you'd added stuff to it. Like, you'd added mushrooms.
Mushrooms
it was
and olives and cheese. Like, it was... We'd gone full out.
You crying over the pizza never seemed to me irrational. It seemed very rational.
Everyone was so supportive. So if you see your friend and they're about to cry over a dropped pizza, support them because it's
not the dropped pizza. It's everything else that led to the dropped pizza. I mean, I think we've all. Surely everyone in their life has just cried over something ridiculous that makes no sense. That must be a thing. I can't name you any examples, but I definitely feel like that. I remember one time I was really angry when I was younger. I was having like a really stupid fight with my mum and dad. I don't even know what it would be about, but it was definitely my fault, whatever it was. I was eating a cookie, and I didn't know what else to do, so I just threw the cookie at a wall. And they just laughed at me, and that made it worse because I was like,
I'm so angry.
I don't have any more cookies to throw. I only had the one. And I didn't know how to process that anger, so then I probably stormed out. Maybe slammed a door.
I used to slam doors as a child.
Yeah. Where did we think it would get us?
I don't know.
It gets you nowhere.
It's just to let them know that you're angry when you're not in front of them.
Yeah. Like, I'll slam a door. I'm that angry. I don't think I've done it as an adult, but, there's time. Maybe I'll bring it back.
I think I've done it in annoyance. I don't think I've ever been angry. I've been like, shut up, and just shut the door. Not in my family, but like noisy neighbours.
But like
stuff.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been times where the back door's been open, and I've had like a bit of a spat with someone, but not big, and gone to leave and close the door behind me because the back door's open or a window's open.
It slams.
When I close it slams, and then I just find that very embarrassing. And I have walked back into rooms and said, I wasn't slamming the door, it slammed itself. Which is a low moment. But in happier news, we now have 200 listens.
I can't believe it.
We actually have over it now, since I think there's like 209 or something like that.
That's I
mean, it's not worthy of a bonus video. But it is worthy of celebrating.
It's a huge celebration. And another thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze then. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for helping. Thanks for being there. Means the world.
Coming back week after week.
Yeah. Or if you're just a new listener and you listen once, come back again. But if not, thanks anyway.
Listen to the ones that interest you.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that's fair enough.
if you're not interested, so today we're talking about history, but if you're not interested in that, don't listen. But you should listen, because history's cool.
History's cool, guys.
History's cool. Well, shall we get into it?
I think we should. So,
Right.
Who are you? What period in history, and who are you talking about?
Right, so ladies and some gentlemen and anyone else, me, Hannah, I am doing the Stuarts, that period,
Excellent.
the Stuarts, with focus on Charles II, my favourite of the Stuarts, but mainly his ladies and Nell Gwyn, who is my favourite of his ladies.
Yes.
A lot of his ladies are just incredible.
I don't know. I only know Nell Gwyn. I only know of Nell Gwyn and her kind of...
Yeah.
Did she do something with oranges?
Yes, she sold them.
She sold them. That's what she did with the orange.
Oranges.
That's the extent of my knowledge.
No, the reason I knew there was a lot is, firstly, from the Horrible Histories Charles II song,
which is
my favourite song.
Playing through my head currently as...
Yeah, I think as soon as I say Charles II, I'm thinking,
what?
Charles II. Yeah. And in that he lists a bunch of the women he had affairs with, or his mistresses. Nell Gwyn is my favourite, but when I actually have a book on Nell Gwyn that I referenced for this,
Excellent.
and I was flicking through it. You can't really talk about Nell without some of the others, because there was a bit of competition.
Oh.
There was some competition going on, but we'll get to that. So I thought I'd start with a super brief history of the Stuarts, because they're a dramatic bunch and you kind of need context to understand
and
why
there's
Charles II...
Big things happen in the Stuart dynasty.
A lot. Exactly. So this is general history. Some of it, like, dates might be wrong because I took most of this information from my head. So...
Oh, we love it. She's just an expert.
I didn't check up on some of it. I think I maybe checked up on some of it, but some of it's just could be wrong.
No,
but just trust me.
Don't doubt yourself.
Some of the dates might be wrong, but just don't expect me to remember stuff. Okay. Alright, so the Stuarts start with our favourite, Queen Elizabeth, dying in 1603. Obviously, Elizabeth is the Virgin Queen, so she has no babies.
She has no babies. She wanted to keep her power.
Which is fair, like, go off.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she's got no heirs. So, who do they bring in? They bring in Charles VI of Scotland. No, not Charles. James VI of Scotland. Who then... I know nothing about this period. James VI of Scotland, who becomes James I of England. So he is king in both places. He comes in. It makes me laugh because he's a odd link to Elizabeth, because he is the son of Mary Queen of Scots, who famously was burnt and kind of a bit of an enemy of Elizabeth, but... Not burnt, what am I
She was
about?
beheaded.
She was just killed. Why am I...
She wasn't a witch.
I wasn't talking... I was thinking in my head about how she burnt a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not thinking right. But just take what you want from this. She's beheaded. You'd think James would have a bit of an issue with England after that, but... I don't know, he's pretty chill. I guess if you're going to be another king, you're not going to be that mad. He comes in. The only things to pick up about his role is the gunpowder plot happens while he's got the crown. He's definitely gay. You can't tell me otherwise.
Irrefutably gay.
Yeah. Historians can try and tell you otherwise. I refuse to believe
they are homophobic.
Because, the way that different, fractions in the court would get power is by getting attractive men that would be attractive to James and making them, in their little fractions, and then James would go towards them. And the most famous one was the Duke of Buckingham at the time, who was George Villiers, just famously really attractive, and him and James have essentially a relationship for a while. I think there's little love letters between them. I think they have a relationship until, or at least they have something until James dies, which happens in 1625. James overall has an okay rule.
I heard something recently that he had this huge witch obsession, And Scotland has never publicly apologised for the amount of women that were, like, burnt at the stake. Like, very recently it was in the news that he kind of, when Macbeth was being written, there's a reason that this, like, witch, he loved that so much because, one, it's about Scottish kings, and two, the three witches are the opening thing. So he had a real paranoia. It's like satanic panic.
It's partially to do with it's something like when his wife was coming in from wherever she'd been taken from, essentially.
Probably French.
Yeah, probably. It was a really rough ride or something. It was really hard to get she nearly died, essentially. And it was said to be the work of witchcraft. And then I think from then he was like, yeah, seems legit. I don't see any reason why not. But, yeah, I think he got over it. So he dies. I mean, he's okay. He's not my favourite, but I do like his relationship with Buckingham. But Buckingham's a bit of like I don't think he's a great person. He pops up again, but then he dies. So Charles I becomes king. Here's the fun thing about him. He wasn't meant to be king, so he's not the firstborn. His older brother was kind of the perfect option for king, but he dies.
Oh dear.
So then Charles, who I think he had a stutter. He was quite short. He seemed a bit meek. He was then king, and he just really, I don't think he was really meant for the role. Not that anyone is, but especially not Charles. He marries Henrietta Maria. They don't get on at first, but I find this cute. Apparently, so when Buckingham dies, because Buckingham, after James dies, has a bit of like a friendship with Charles. I guess like it's a nice little relationship with your dad, who's dead, through his lover. I don't know. But when Buckingham dies, I think that's when Henrietta and Charles really fall in love, because she really comforts him through the time. Aww. Supposedly, which is nice. Yeah. So Charles generally does a bad job of being king, but I think it was kind of, there was stuff left over from previous rules. He just kind of made it even worse. He wasn't great. There was a civil war that lasted between 1642 and 1651.
See, I don't even know how long the civil war. So it was roughly 10 years.
Too long, yeah, essentially 10 years. God. And then that ends with Charles being beheaded. But there are some cute beheading stories.
Oh dear. Caveat.
Again, these are from my memory. These might not be true, but from what I remember, he puts on like loads of layers of clothes so he's not shivering when he's beheaded, so he doesn't seem like he's scared. Which very brave.
Cute. Is that the adjective?
So, think what you will about beheadings, but I don't agree with people being beheaded at all. But this may have been the right decision.
I think would you prefer? That was we're not phrasing it that way. Because they were also like, people were hung, drawn, and quartered at this time as well, like torn apart by horses. Like they would tie a horse to each. Each limb would be tied to a different horse, and then each horse would be like going in a different direction. And that was a method to die. So I feel like being beheaded, it happened a lot. And it probably was one of the better ways to die.
Was it not Jane Eyre? What is happening with my mind? I mean Anne Boleyn. I don't know where Jane Eyre came from. Was it not like Anne Boleyn that when they were beheading her, it didn't go in one swoop, and they had to sort of saw through?
No, I think it took like 2 goes, or so, like they had to yank it back going out, and then
And I think that was kind of common. So I don't think I prefer any of them, but I see what you mean, that they all seem like bad options.
Yes.
But I don't want to be hung, drawn, and quartered. There was a show that was about the, I don't know, Kit Harington was in it. It was about
Guy Fawkes.
Guy Fawkes, yeah, and it showed really graphically the sort of techniques they would do.
The torturing.
At the time, if you want to see. But you probably don't. So, moving on.
What did they do to Charles I's body? Because I can't quite remember that.
He buried it.
But wasn't he dug back up again and put on display?
No, that's different.
Oh, okay.
So, Charles, I'll get to that. Yeah. Charles, fine, dead.
Charles fine dead.
Henrietta Maria leaves with her children, I guess. Well, I think she leaves a bit before that. They go to France. They go all over the place. So then Oliver Cromwell comes in.
Oh, we do not like Mr. Cromwell.
Yeah, no. I mean, technically, he's no worse than any of them. Like,
no.
He's no worse than any of them. I think it's just the fact he's not a king. And also a lot of this stuff is exaggerated about him. So there's all this stuff about it was him who ensured Charles would die, but it wasn't.
Right.
All this stuff. I'm not going to talk about Cromwell though because I don't really like him. He's just really boring. And he banned theatre.
And Christmas.
And he stopped people celebrating Christmas. Yeah. Really boring time. That goes on until 1658 when he dies. And then the most stupid thing happens is so they stop royalty because it's wrong. And they want to, I guess, vote people in to lead. But instead of that, it just goes through a line of succession to Cromwell's son Richard, who is just terrible at it, doesn't want to do it. Just gets the worst option out of everything because then I think he has to go into exile because he does such a terrible job. And then Charles II comes back in 1660, takes the crown, and it's great.
Everyone has a great time.
Yeah, well, some people probably didn't, but everyone we care about did. All the rich people did. No, when I say that Charles II is great, I know realistically he's not great. He did a bunch of terrible things. But yeah, I'm going to talk about him anyway. So, Charles II, you can imagine, great relief after such an extreme Puritan rule. And in fact, he was called the Merry Monarch because he was having so much fun. Everyone was having a great time. Except a bunch of people weren't, but moving on. So, here's what I think you were thinking of. It's Cromwell that is brought up, dug up. He has a posthumous execution.
Oh my god.
Which involves him and some other commanders being hanged in chains and then thrown in a pit for good measure and then decapitated and his head being put on a pole outside Westminster Hall. And I thought that was probably just for a little while, but his head stays there until 1685.
Oh my god, is that 20 years? No.
Yep, over 20 years. Because the execution happens in 1661 on the 12th anniversary of Charles's execution.
Oh.
So that's how petty Charles II can be.
Oh my god.
That's what you get for killing my dad, who I didn't really care about, and I didn't really know. So I'm just going to share some of my favourite Charles II stories. That's one of them. I just love that pettiness. It's not ideal, but I like it. Then there's the Great Fire of London. I recently learned, though, when the plague was going off, which was a couple of years before the Great Fire of London, instead of helping, Charles just goes off to stay outside of London, which isn't great. But I guess they kind of have to preserve the king, because at this point, he's got no legitimate children, nor will he ever have any legitimate children.
He's here for a good time, not the long time.
Exactly. So, Great Fire of London happens, and Charles gets out and about, starts helping people. Apparently, he didn't stop for 30 hours, and he was everywhere he could be. He helped everyone. He was throwing water, he was pulling buildings down. He was having a great time. Also, I always find it weird that in my head, when I learned about the Great Fire of London as a child, I thought tons of people would have died.
Yeah.
And I'm always shocked when it was just 6.
6 people?
6 people. Wouldn't you have thought, it's the Great Fire of London. It took ages to put out.
Yeah.
It burned a bunch of stuff. 6 people died. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't more.
Oh my god.
How? Okay, so that happens. Love that story. Makes him seem like a legend. Also, I like all the work he did for the restoration of the theatre, and he did a lot of stuff with science. But, yeah, he was pretty much responsible for the theatre coming back to normal. He undertook huge patronage of the dramatic arts, and, my favourite bit, even legalised female actors on the stage. So, he's the reason you could then see women in Shakespeare instead of just men. And the reason Nell Gwyn can make a living. So, that's worth remembering. So, also one of my favourite things is the fact his mum just full-on hates him. So Henrietta Maria gives birth to him, and so he famously has he has very dark hair. I think, quite dark features, and all that's how he's described. And Henrietta Maria just thinks that's super ugly, and is ashamed of him from
God.
birth. Yeah, is quoted saying she's ashamed of him, and just tyrannized him, and dreaded him.
Oh.
And yeah, so I think that's responsible for a lot of his relationships with the women in his life. Then the final thing, which is my favourite story about him, is the one about him and the crown jewels. This guy called Thomas Blood attempts to steal the crown jewels, which is a pretty hefty crime. Pretty sure it's punishable by death at that time. But instead of doing anything, Charles just kind of finds it funny. He gives him a full pardon and grants him land and island worth £500 a year, which at that time is a lot of money.
Why did he do that? Was he just...
there's a lot of speculation. Some people say he just found it funny that someone would just have the guts to try and do that. But then other people say it was like a political move. But I like to believe he just thought it was funny. And that's what I'm choosing to believe. So, on to the ladies.
This is what we've been waiting for.
I'm not going to include all of them because there was a ton, but I'm including my favourites. So, his wife, Catherine of Braganza. I'm going to say some words wrong, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Catherine comes in. She's Portuguese. And immediately, Charles is up to no good. So he's already got this mistress, Barbara Villiers, who's a bit of a legend herself. I'll get on to her in a minute. But he tries to appoint Barbara as one of the ladies of the Queen's chambers.
Right.
Which is essentially just being, like, now it would be like, I'm having an affair with this woman.
She needs to be close to you.
Be not only close to you, but in a position of power. Because to be a lady of the bedchamber is a very big honour.
Yeah.
As someone who is essentially just a mistress, who would not be viewed well at the time. So, Catherine's pretty chill with the affairs, because I don't think it's like, you know, back in that time, it's not necessarily a marriage of love. Affairs are kind of normal for kings to have, you know. She was pretty chill with that, but she was not okay with this, and he thought it would be cool to just introduce them spontaneously, so he just brings her out. He's like, this is Barbara, my lady. And apparently, Catherine grips onto a chair, and, like, in a fury, and her nose starts to bleed.
Oh my god!
So that goes as well as you might think, but apparently, he essentially forced everyone in the court to be okay with the fact he was having affairs, which is not usual for, like, English royalty to be okay with mistresses, but he just really wanted a mistress. But then, Catherine and Barbara just end up having a bit of a laugh. They're just reported as having a laugh together, and she does end up as one of the... I think she ends up in her bedchamber, but they have a good time. But then I think Catherine just seems like a really nice person.
Yeah.
I don't think her and Charles ever have a romantic relationship. I think it's always quite siblingly love.
Okay.
So, Catherine can't have children. Apparently this brought sadness to her and Charles. But I think it probably brought more sadness to her, seeing as Charles had about, like, 500 ton of children. Yeah, he just had a lot of offspring. So I imagine she was a lot more sad. And apparently she lacked jealousy towards all his mistresses, was just kind to them. And she showed kindness to his illegitimate children as well. So she was just all-rounded lovely. And then there was one time when she was dangerously ill, and they all thought she was going to die, and that Charles was going to bring in this new mistress he had, and put her on the throne, kind of in a Henry VIII way. They thought he was... But, say, Charles, yes, he did cheat on his wife a lot, but he was a very loyal person, and he stayed with her for hours, crying into her hands and begging her to live for him. He was very loyal to her. So that's nice. That's a nice aside, but I mean, on the bad side, he did kind of force everyone to be okay with the fact he was going to have a mistress, which is not great. No. So then we move on to Barbara Villiers, who is the main lady at the time, the one they try and get in the bedchambers. I would just say she's ahead of her time. So the book I was reading refers to her as a nymphomaniac, which I don't think she is, but she could be. I think it could just be like sexism. Because she was having a lot of sex.
Yeah, so what
at a time when it was unusual.
Do people use that term as an nymphomaniac?
Well, I don't know. I would have to look into it. I'm sure there are people who are nymphomaniacs, but I don't know enough. But yeah, Barbara, she had sex with men and women. Just great stuff. She had a lot of lovers. And apparently, this is the thing that doesn't sit right with me. She bit off the penis of a dead bishop.
Of a dead bishop?
Yeah. Why would you do it? That's an apparently. We don't know if that happened for certain, but rumour has it. That's what she spent her free time doing.
I'm trying to think of the scenario in which she would be, one, around a dead bishop. Was he, like...
I think she just was having some fun.
At his funeral? Did he die while they were together, and then...
No, I imagine that it was sort of like a protest. She found a dead bishop. Just on the side of the road. And she went up and she was like, I don't like your views on women. So she bit his penis off. Which isn't the right thing to do. Also, I made all that up. She probably... if anyone knows, like, let me know. But all I know is that apparently she did that. So, Charles acknowledges 5 of her children to be his, but people doubt that all 5 were, because she had so many lovers that it's doubtful. This is kind of the case with a lot of his lovers, that he acknowledges the children to be his, but a lot of people doubt that they are, because these women had a lot of lovers.
Was it to get, so that they would have, not peerages, but they would be able to have, like, a income from...
Yeah, essentially. Well, it was just kind of a nice thing to do, so then... You don't have your child just going around being like, I have a really terrible life and my dad's the king.
Yeah.
Kind of like Henry VIII again. Terrible man. So, this is one of my favourite bits. He refuses to acknowledge the 6th child as his. Because I think at that time he'd kind of had enough and was like, this one's not even mine. So he's like, that's not my child. She says, essentially she would bring it to court and bash the baby's brains out in front of him if he didn't acknowledge it was his.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and he still was like, no, I don't want to. And see, that's why you acknowledge your children, because otherwise that could happen.
Literal infanticide in the English court.
Afterwards, I think she kind of had like a hypnotism over him, because afterwards she made him apologise to her for refusing to acknowledge his child. She did this to the King of England.
Oh my god.
She made him get on his knees and beg for her forgiveness. That's the power Barbara had.
She had no fear. Like...
Yeah. He was like, get on your knees. And he did it. I don't think he acknowledged the child, but he apologised.
God.
So then... Also, she was paying a man to have sex with her at one point. And Charles caught this man slipping out of her room in the evening. And shouted after him, I love this line, I forgive you if you do it for your bread. So he's like, I forgive you because you need it, so you need the money.
Yeah, sex work is real work.
Yeah. I mean, I might be over-exaggerating, but it does seem like Charles II was the original feminist, so... Okay, then we move on to the second mistress I'll be talking about, which is, I don't talk about her for a lot, but just one story that I love. Hortense Mancini. Which is quite the name.
Hortense
Mancini. So, she's a bit of a wild one as well. It's because she had an affair not only with the King of England, but also the Prince of Monaco. And, while she's having her affair with Charles, she sleeps with Anne Leonard, who is Charles's illegitimate daughter. So she's quite the lady, and Charles finds out about the fact she's sleeping with his illegitimate daughter, and he's like, please stop and leave. But they continue to be friends.
Oh.
But he just ends the affair, and he's like, I'd rather you weren't doing that. So, please leave the castle. And she does, but they still hang out, I think.
So were they all living under the same...
No, I don't
like
think
all
so.
the mistresses and all the illegitimate children.
I really doubt that. I can't tell you for exactly, but Barbara will have lived in the castle
Okay.
if she was the Queen's maid.
Yeah.
The others don't. Nell Gwyn, who I'm going to talk about next, famously had her own house that he bought for her. And fun fact, one of his other mistresses, he bought this silver table, or no, it was like a silver plate maybe, to go in her apartment they'd given her. Nell, who's just got a house, she said she wouldn't rent it because she wouldn't feel free if she was renting, so she made him buy the house. So because she's super petty and just hilarious, she hears about this plate or whatever that the other mistress has got. So she asks for a silver bed. A full silver bed.
Oh my god.
So their bed that they share in her house is made of full-on silver because she's that petty.
Oh my god.
It's just incredible. So, on to Nell. That's that transition.
The queen of the moment.
Nell, she didn't have the best upbringing, so her dad is taken to debtor's prison and he dies there. And her mum has to find a way to provide for the children she has. So, as many women did back then, she turns to prostitution. And Nell pretty much grows up in a brothel. But, it makes her the person she is, I guess. But, yeah, fun fact, at this time, 1 in 10 women in London were prostitutes.
Oh my god.
Because there really was no other way to make money if you were a woman.
1 in 10?
1 in 10.
Oh my god.
In London. So, Charles II is 20 years Nell's senior. And they do meet when she's a teenager. Yeah, I mean, it was a different time.
Yeah.
I guess that was kind of normal, but I still don't think that's great. So, Nell starts out by selling oranges in the theatre because, she needs to make that coin. And she's doing that. After about a year of doing that, because she's just incredible, they're like, hey, how about you start acting in the plays? And she manages to act in plays, remember all these lines, while being illiterate, which I just think is incredible.
God, yeah.
They say the lines to her, she remembers them.
Wow.
Can you imagine trying to learn, some lines from Macbeth, say, and you never read them, someone just says them to you, and you remember them.
That's remarkable.
And at this time as well, when you're doing theatre, you might be doing 3 plays a week, and you just have to learn them. So I just think that's crazy. Shows that she's an intelligent woman, and she's just great at acting. She would have had an Oscar if she was here now. Also, she's so comfortable on stage and just so outwardly confident that she starts playing these roles that were relatively new for women, because as well, women had only just started acting.
Yeah,
so
within this monarch, yeah.
Yeah, not many of them are going to be super, confident on stage because it's new to them.
Yeah.
So she starts playing all these new roles for women that were, independent and individual and powerful and comedic. She was not good in a tragedy, she was funny and she was powerful. Her and Aphra Behn, the lovely, one of the first female playwrights, basically, were besties. They would just hang out together and have a laugh about how they hated marriage, and they'd be like, oh, isn't marriage terrible? And Aphra Behn would be like, yeah, I want to be in a play.
That makes me so happy, because we did one Aphra Behn play, and I kind of wish we did the one about the African king.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called.
I don't know what it's called. The one we did we do The Rover?
No, we did The Emperor and the Moon.
Right.
And I
didn't read it. I read a bit of it. I'm sorry to Aphra Behn, because I think it's great what she did. I thought it was boring.
Yeah. I don't think it was in a jumbled up play module, wasn't it? So it was they didn't give it the time and attention.
We didn't get a lot of the context as well, and the gravity of what she was doing. So I think it's great what she did, but I still find I don't enjoy the play that much. Yeah. Sorry, Aphra. But I love her friendship with Nell.
Yeah.
They're great friends. So it just seems that Nell is a great gal because she's sort of friends with everyone. She's good. Obviously her and Charles are having their affair, but they're also really good pals.
Aww.
And she's kind of, to a lot of people in England, they saw her as a sort of Cinderella character.
Oh, like Rags to Riches.
She was called because she was called Cinder Nell or something by some people, because she literally grew up in a brothel and then she's having an affair with the king, which, even though you might be the king's mistress, that's a really
high position,
good role. He doesn't just it wasn't that normal for a king to pick someone who was, like, illiterate and had, like, so they're great friends, and like I said, it was odd for the king to have picked essentially a social outcast to be his equal, but he did. And she's also friends with his oldest illegitimate son, who's called James, and this makes me uncomfy. His oldest illegitimate son is 1 year older than Nell, so... but also, Charles loves James, who's the oldest son. So does Nell. James kind of fancies Nell, but she apparently felt that she had a maternal role in his life, which is weird.
He's older than her.
I think to most people, she seemed very mature because of her upbringing.
Yeah.
So then we just get onto her being general comedy gold. So this is my favourite story. Charles gets a new mistress called Louise at one point, who is French and was his sister's maid of honour. And his sister dies. It's untimely. He's really sad about it. I think she was poisoned.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was something to do... A lot of people think her husband was gay and he poisoned her so he could live his life. I don't know if that's true, but that's what some people think. So he's really sad about his sister's death, and Louise becomes his mistress. And a lot of the time when they're together, it's just them crying.
Oh.
Because Louise has been taken from her home to live in the castle. I don't think she's super pleased about that. And her, like, besties just died. And the king's just super sad about his sister's death. So they just cry together, essentially. So Nell and the new Duke of Buckingham, who was kind of essential for Nell becoming the king's mistress, performed a skit together at one of the Duke of Buckingham's all-night dinners. That's how they labelled them. Apparently he was just having all-night dinners. They perform a skit together where they pretend to be the king and Louise. He's the king, and he would just cry and place jewels in Nell's lap. And then Nell would cry and just mock Louise's French accent.
God.
And she did this a lot. She would purposely mess up Louise's second name. She would just...
undermine her.
It was essentially horrible to her. And if you were thinking that Charles would be angry about this, he was not, because when word reached him that this had happened, he just thought it was funny and laughed.
See, that just shows you that if you have a good sense of humour, life is just so much easier.
Exactly, because essentially they're mocking him, the king.
Yeah, for grieving over his sister.
Yeah, and this French girl who's been brought over and is, like, quite rightly sad, and they're just like, haha, she can't speak English. Okay, then the next bits are more like, they're kind of like folklore. I think they are generally true, but bits of them might have been bigged up a bit. I choose to believe them because they're incredible. So this is my favourite one. Nell's, like, travelling, and there's an anti-Catholic mob going on. So she's passing through Oxford, and everyone thinks that she's a different mistress of Charles's, and they think she's a Catholic mistress. I think that they might have thought she was Louise, who would be Catholic.
Yeah.
And so they're screaming the Catholic whore at her carriage. And she pops her head out of the carriage and says, "Good people, you are mistaken. I'm the Protestant whore." And then they all cheer, and she just continues on her way. I just think, incredible. Then there's just stories of her and Charles being great friends, because one time he got stressed out about all of his mistresses hounding him for money. So he goes to Nell for advice, and she says to him, "Lock up your codpiece," basically meaning
stop
keep
having
it in your
sex,
pants.
Yeah.
So, which, again, the fact he went to her for, like, input on... The king went to just his mistress and was like, "What do I do?" And she was just like,
"Stop having sex.
Yeah. Just stop." And then apparently, I think this is the one that I suspect probably isn't true, but I'd love if it was. Charles also had a mistress called Moll Davis, she of course was Nell's rival because she was his mistress, but also she was also an actress, so she was even more Nell's rival. So there was one time that Moll was meant to be going up to Charles's room to sort of, have some fun there, but also make herself main mistress, and Nell was not having it, so she slips some laxatives into Moll's drink, so Moll could not go and attend the king.
Oh my
And
god.
apparently, Afra-Ben helped her with this. They did it together. They tag teamed. But that one's kind of more according to like satires from the time. So I don't know if that one's as true.
Yeah.
And then there's also this one, which is kind of similar to the first one, that she saw her servant having a brawl. And she goes outside and she's like, what's going on? Why are you having a fight? And the servant says, oh, this man just called you a whore. And she says, I am a whore. Find something else to fight about. And then winks at them and leaves. And then also, the just most iconic thing ever is that she displays her nude portraits in a hallway. So when a guest come in, they can see them.
Incredible.
And say, oh, that's nice. Which would essentially be if you went to your friend's house now and they just had their nudes on the wall. And I just think that's great. And then the last story, really, this one I think is true, that King Charles comes to visit her in a house with her son, and she wants her son to have a title, because a lot of the mistresses' sons have titles, so she's kind of miffed about that, because she's a petty girl. So when he comes over, they're having a chat, and she goes to the son, come here, you little bastard, and say hello to your father. And the king's like, why did you just call our child that? That's not very nice. And she says, your majesty has given me no other name by which to call him. Then he gets
a title.
Then he gets his title. because, I mean, she wasn't wrong. So then the whole thing ends with Charles dying. She's with him basically from when they get together to his death.
Oh my god, that is a long time.
He dies, and one of his last requests is to not let poor Nellie starve, and they don't. They keep giving her money.
Oh my god.
And she's, from the time that she's with him to his death, she's always faithful to him, and even after his death, she never takes another lover.
Really?
And she called him Charles III because he was the third Charles that she'd had as a lover.
That's
which I think
so funny.
But then she dies about 2 years later at 35.
Oh my god, that's so young.
And it's probably syphilis related because she has a stroke.
Okay.
And that's kind of unusual for 35 even at that time, and they think she definitely had syphilis from Charles, who also definitely had syphilis. But she made arrangements so that each year on Christmas Day her funds would secure debtors from debtors' prison as a tribute to her father who died there.
Oh,
so,
God.
Yeah, but nice that she was like, well, my dad died there. I don't want anyone else's dad to die there, because if her dad hadn't died in debtor's prison, her mum probably wouldn't have had to go and prostitute herself, and they may have had a very different life. So that's kind of a brief history of Charles II and his lover. Obviously, there's a lot that goes on that I didn't mention, but I wasn't interested in that.
No, I think that's the thing about history. Like, if you're interested in something, you can find out the interesting bits. You don't have to, like, trudge through all the annoying...
there's loads of stuff about, like, him and Parliament and him stopping parliaments, but if you want to know that, go watch the documentary.
Yeah.
So I don't want to tell you about Parliament. It's boring.
We love Nell Gwyn.
Yeah, we do. I want to tell you about the women who were, like, bisexual back then and just living their lives. That's what I want to know about.
If you were rich, like, aristocrat, when the Restoration comes around, you'd just be like, this is the time.
You are having a great time.
Yeah.
If you were rich then, brilliant. If you were poor, nothing changed. You were still having an awful time.
You were still poor.
Yeah, it was kind of the majority. I mean, again, considering 1 in 10 women in London were prostitutes, that kind of tells you all you need to know. If you were a woman and you had money, yeah, you could kind of have a good time, but if not, prepare for prostitution or a life as a wife who's going to give birth to about 8 children and then die on the 8th one.
Yeah.
You know? Sorry. Okay. The end. Now you, Holly.
Well, I'm going to tell you all about Marie Antoinette.
Oh my god, who is she?
Have you heard of her? Because she's quite an obscure figure in history.
Did she have a long, happy life? Did she live a long time?
She didn't live a long time, but she did have a happy time for the vast majority of it, I would say.
Marie Antoinette was just like, I'm here for a good time, but not a long time.
Definitely not a long time at the end.
Do you think she would have changed the way she lived if she knew that it would Because I don't think she would have.
See, you say that, but I actually think from the things that she's done, because people say she was actually quite philanthropic, and that she adopted several different children and like paid for their education.
That's nice.
And got out of a carriage at one point when she saw that someone, I think there'd been a carriage crash, and then she got out and like adopted the dead man's children like on the spot to save them from destitution.
This one is mine.
But she
I'll
loved
have this one.
She loved children. She what else did she do? She never said let them eat cake. That was made up.
Yeah.
By
who made it up?
Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
I know it shouldn't be real and it would have been bad, but I do wish she had said it.
It would have been absolutely iconic if she'd said
because I know the context of her saying it is bad, but I often think to myself, let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Because back then, I'm going to let you talk about Marie Antoinette in a minute, but I know you recently watched the film.
I did.
Of Marie Antoinette. And in that, like, all their meals are just like cakes and macarons and like pastries and wine. And I watched that and I'm like, I wish that was normal and we could just for every meal have a stack of macarons instead of like a soup, you know?
Tired of soup, I want some macarons.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've got a few thoughts about the film. Like, one, it was just beautiful to look at, and I love period dramas, and that kind of like, it was the costumes and how sumptuous it was. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But Jason Schwartzman is so funny at the beginning. Like, every time they did like the bed scene where they weren't having sex,
it's funny.
I was pissing myself every time because I was just like, he's just.
At one point, does he just like roll over and go good night? Yeah. Oh, I just imagine that in my head.
And she tries to like put her leg over his, and he's like, ugh.
He's funny.
Oh, he was amazing in it. And the other,
he was well cast in that.
Yes, 100%. And then kind of, I don't know, it was interesting because it kind of ends badly and dramatically.
Yeah.
But I think what was interesting so I did all my research and then I watched the film and then I was like, oh, well, people are looking for them to kind of look at the revolution, look at the world that's changing on the outside. They had no idea. And she came to it. So she was 14 when she got married to him. He was 15. So they were children.
Oh, babies.
They were just
That's
babies.
Too young.
And to think if that has been your world, and she had to leave like everything Austrian about her behind as soon as she crossed that border, and they couldn't see it. They lived in this huge palace where everybody in court lived. They lived by all these rules. They couldn't, the whole system of it was so far removed from the outside world. But she had little moments of being very philanthropic. So she set up a house for like foundling children, and she did some good things, but I feel like it's in the way of what's it called, like kind of celebrity philanthropy now, that it's like, oh, I will do this because I think this is me doing a big like thing to help. But
I think it's funny that like a lot of the stuff she did was like specifically with children, because I think it's easy for people to feel sympathy for children no matter what.
Yeah.
Because in the past, I think that is a lot of what the charity work was, that they would work with children who are poor.
Yeah.
But then they never really do much with, like, adults who are living in poverty. And I think maybe that's the case that, like, everyone has a lot of children for sympathy for children, and they'll look at them and be like, oh, bless, they have no parents. Oh. But when it's adults, like, royalty was never like, oh, I feel bad for the fact that they weren't born into pure wealth like ours.
Yeah, and it's like
they couldn't really understand that.
The system, like, yes, you can look after the children, but once they become an adult, there's no system in place to guarantee them any kind of like good way of life. So I don't think she was a bad person. I just think she doesn't. She didn't know.
No, I don't.
I think that, and also she was scapegoated so much by the revolutionary that yes, they did spend a lot, but France was already in like huge amount of debt.
Yeah,
they inherited that from Louis the 14th.
But like you say, like, how could have she... There was no way of her to know differently, you know?
And I think the Sofia Coppola film really is good at showing that, as beautiful as it is.
Like,
and
yeah.
It's very, like, this was their world. They didn't leave Versailles. Like, they just didn't do it. And when they did, it was for her little peasant village that she built.
Yeah. Oh my god. But if you, like, compared the killing of them to, like, the killing of the Romanovs in Russia, like, they shouldn't have killed the children, okay?
No.
But just bear with me. The king and the Tsar and the Tsarina were adults.
Yes.
And they didn't deserve to die, but they had some autonomy over what they were doing and understanding, and they knew that there was a ton of issues in Russia, but they weren't doing stuff to change them.
No.
Whereas here, there was just 2 children. They were always children, and they were never made aware that there was anything else happening.
No, exactly. And I think especially when it comes to, like, the Russian Revolution, 1917, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There were moments where they were told, especially, like, during the World Wars, there were moments where they were like, right, stuff is changing, you need to leave. This was there was a really interesting, like, parallel that everyone else got out of Versailles when the revolutionary mob, well, they knew they were coming. They were like, they were tracking them. But they wouldn't leave. Yeah. They wouldn't leave Versailles until it was too late and the mob was upon them. And that's why they could have got out.
Sad. Before you start, just something that I always think, because I can't remember, I watched the movie years ago, so I don't know if you ever find out. Why does the king not want to have sex with her? Because they're children?
I think no one had told him how to have sex. Is one of the theories is that it either never crossed his mind, because he never had a mistress. He only was with Marie Antoinette his whole life, and people were like, "What are you doing?" Especially because
that's kind of unusual for French royalty, because they were famous for their mistresses.
Especially because there was Madame de Bassy, I think her name was, and there was this big whole, like, diamond affair with Marie Antoinette, and there was, she was the former king's, like, most favoured mistress who didn't like Marie Antoinette. So, like, there was very public mistresses. And he never had a mistress. So maybe he just didn't. They didn't have sex for 7 years.
7 years?
7 years.
And then, like, I just want to know, like, what changed in his head, like, that they hit the 7-year mark and he was like, yep.
I think it was...
Now's the time.
It was... Some people say that he might have had, like, a genital issue where he had, like, a very tight foreskin. And then he had a medical operation.
How do people know that?
Because for 7 years people were like, what's happening? Why haven't you had sex yet? And people were blaming her. And
then he had an operation that helped?
This is one of the things. So he might have had, like, an adult circumcision. And then that... it wasn't painful anymore. Or he was so shy. Or it was Marie Antoinette's older brother came and was like, he spoke to them both individually and was like, right, sort it out, explain to Louis that what sex was, and then they had sex and they had a baby within a year. So,
well, had she, in the 7 years, I will let you go on to this minute, I'm just so interested. In the 7 years, did she have lovers, or was she just...
No.
They just waited 7 years.
This was the strangest thing. So, like, they portrayed it well in the film. So they had, like, the marital bed, and after they got married, there's all these people who are just there, watching them, waiting for the next morning as soon as they open the bed curtains, and then it's like, it's just her looking miserable and like, no, obviously didn't happen again.
They also show this in, have you seen the Mary Queen of Scots film with Saoirse Ronan?
No, I haven't seen. Is it good?
I think they really they were like, when a lot of things, when films are trying to be very feminist, and they forget that being feminist doesn't mean that women have to be great characters.
Yeah.
They kind of just fully forgot that Mary did a lot of bad things, and they were just like, oh, poor little woman.
Oh no.
And then it was like, oh yeah, but what about all the people that I would say it was underwhelmed, you know. But they do that in that, and you know William of Orange?
Yes.
Famously a bad person. But yeah, William
unless you're
of
a
Orange,
Protestant.
yeah, sorry. When he was married on his wedding night, Charles II was there cheering him on and giving pointers.
That's ridiculous. That
was just. Isn't that weird that was the thing, that they would just stand around and be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, to like prove it happened. And but it just never happened. So I don't know. Obviously, no one had given him any sex ed. So he was like, for 7 years, and she kept getting blamed by her mum because her mum was like, she was a fucking like queen or something. But she was saying, she was like the Empress of Austria, and she was like, you need to inspire your husband to like consummate the marriage. Like, what is wrong with you?
Inspire him.
What are you doing? But he was just a teenage boy who was more interested in hunting. That's literally, I think that's one of the reasons. But then, you know, they do eventually have sex. Apparently, when she first arrived in France, in Paris, 50,000 Parisians just started like rioting to see her. At least 30 people were trampled to death in the crush to try and.
That's more people than died in the Great Fire of London.
It's a lot more people. We don't hear about that.
Oh my god!
So she was like she had a big influence, I think, at the beginning, and the whole like style thing, and she had these outrageous dresses, and but yeah, her petite hameau, the utopian hamlet that had lakes and gardens and cottages, and they would dress as peasants and pretend to be milkmaids and shepherdesses. And well, obviously the revolutionaries found this out and were like, Madame Deficit, because she is just.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if I was a revolutionary, which I would hope to be, this would not be the news I'd love to hear.
Because that's where Let Them Eat Cake came. It was like, apparently when she was asked, they were like, they have no bread. She said, let them eat cake instead, because obviously everyone has cake lying around.
But if that was true, that kind of, I know it's not, but this is why it would have been good if it was true, because that would show how she just was not aware that, you know, like she was just so in her head thinking, well, we have cake. Why would everyone else not have cake to then eat if they've not got bread?
Yeah. So I think she was definitely like, what's it called? She was definitely scapegoated. And so Louis XIV was killed before her, executed. So she had to wait like 9 months before she was executed. So 9
months?
Yeah, and they put her on trial because they took her son, Louis Charles, and kind of not brainwashed him, but they were trying to like make him like a revolutionary king so he wouldn't have all that learned stuff, and they forced him to testify that his mother had an incestuous relationship with him.
Oh, that's really sad.
Isn't it?
What happened to him in the end?
I don't know. I imagine he probably like escaped because they reinstated the monarchy, didn't they? Yeah, so
yes.
After the Bourbon Restoration, so her body was like placed in a beggar's. It was like in an unmarked grave, like they didn't treat her very well. But then she got put into she was exhumed and given a proper burial. So once they restored the monarchy, so this is the interest. Like the revolutions they come and go, don't they? They're like, we don't want them. Actually, we do want them. Look at the world. The world is burning without them.
It is straight because again, it's a similar thing to what happened in England.
Yeah.
That they have the whole civil war that goes on 10 years. So many people die to get rid of the monarchy, and then a couple years go by and they're like, no, actually, it wasn't too bad, but it was. It never got better.
That's the thing. I think
there's
this huge impetus when people reach their breaking point, and it was like, I think they call it the Fishwives March, when they stormed. They didn't storm the Bastille, but they stormed stormed Versailles. It was led by fisherwomen, and it was like, you know, that's unheard of in the terms of like you know how bad it is when the types of people that go out and protest against it and are like, we've had enough as well. We know nothing.
We, the fisherwomen, have had enough.
This is really sad. Her final words. So she stepped on her executioner's foot and she said, "Pardon me, sir, I meant not to do it." And that was her final, they were her final words. And this is the same man who killed her husband like 10 months earlier.
Why did she have to wait? Why? Like, that's the awful part, that she had to spend so long waiting.
And the other awful thing is that she would spend her time when she was in prison because they took her son away from her. She knew that they would bring him out and, like, she would stand beside the window where she thought she could see him, like, all the time, just to catch a glimpse of him because he was taken away from her. It's so sad. It's like, it's really tragic.
I didn't know that.
And then the other thing is that the white dress that became the unofficial uniform of the French Revolutionary woman was first worn and designed by Marie Antoinette herself. She designed the simple little white dress to combat the public's idea of herself as a woman addicted to excess. When she wore it, she didn't look like a queen. She wanted the dress to make her look more like a woman of the people, but it backfired, and then people attacked her for wearing a down market outfit. So she couldn't win.
You can't win. You can't win.
Which is the historical story about women.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that happens now.
Yeah.
Like, if you saw, like, say it was Kate Middleton, and she came out in a dress from Primark to be like, "I'm of the people," people would be like, one,
what are you doing?
You know, wear something designer. And two, I don't know, they'd come for her for wearing Primark.
Yeah. You cannot win. And that is a brief potted history of Marie Antoinette. But and the other thing about the film is Jamie Dornan is a random love interest, like an hour and a half in.
Again, I watched the film ages ago. I forget he's in it.
I completely forgot.
That much? Like, is he in a lot of it? Because he turns up at a party, doesn't he? And he's wearing a mask.
Yeah, everyone's wearing
and
like
really that's all I remember.
Crappy masks, and then they have like say congratulations to the troops who were who were fighting for the American Revolutionary War, and then he's back again, and they have this torrid affair, which I don't know if it's true or not because it didn't appear in.
He never mentioned?
He might have been made up.
What were her and Louis? Like, would you say they had a loving marriage?
I think.
Would you say it was a happy marriage?
It seems like it is. I think they were allowed to do what they wanted within the marriage. Like, she had a great time. He was just quite shy, I think, so he wasn't that bothered about anything.
How many children did they have?
They had 4, but 2 died in infancy. So they had the Dauphin and an older Marie Therese, who was their first child.
And what happened to her?
I don't know, it never said, so maybe I'll look further into...
It's so weird that, like, they're not specific about what happened to the children then. I need to know. Yeah, what would you say is your favourite thing that happened in Marie Antoinette's life? What would you say your favourite thing about her is? Putting you on the spot there.
Yeah. I think probably I don't know, you know, she gets all these, like, little houses and special little getaways that are just built for her.
Yeah.
And
I
think that kind of... She seemed like she had a lot of freedom within the confines. It seemed lonely and, you know, in all these guilt places, but... Yeah. And I think that it's nice that she did... I think if she was more aware of what was going on in the outside world and how people were suffering. Yeah. But then what power would she have had to persuade?
Well, not much. I mean, you said it, like, when you said about the clothing. Like, she tried. That was her small little revolution against, like, look at me, I can dress like this, I can be like you. And she really thought she was doing something good.
But it didn't.
And they were like... And you see it happen with celebrities now when they do something and they think it's well-meaning, and everyone's like, no, that's not good. But it's because they're not, like, they don't live in the real world. No. They're so outside from everyone else's reality.
And I think when people talk about, I don't know if it's just specifically for America, but I imagine it's like on the world global inequity. There's a bigger wage gap now than there was during the French Revolution. Or there's a bigger disparity. So we're past the point where people were revolted. People stormed all their places. Also, this was the other thing in the film. I don't know if you remember, but when the mob arrives at Versailles and they're sitting there and they're having like this really awkward meal, but they're kind of accepting that.
I don't remember
it's
that.
It's so weird because you can hear them like baying for blood outside, but they're having their like weird.
They're like Last Supper.
Yeah, that's what it is. And
sorry, I coughed.
Yeah, she goes out in the middle of the night and she kind of like bows to them on the balcony, and they stop momentarily, but then they start again. So I didn't see that anywhere that was what happened in real life.
Well, so this is kind of unrelated, I guess, but it's something I think about a lot because I'm still on her children, and from what we can assume, they weren't killed, and that's what happens after the Civil War in England. But then again, if you compare it to the Russian Revolution,
they killed
off everyone, and it just kind of shows that. So they kill off everyone in Russia. There's no monarchy again there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But in these two instances, they don't, and the monarchy has to continue. So it makes me think that, like, I'm not saying you should ever kill children. I don't agree with that. But in these cases, they didn't. Like, if there is someone who can take the throne, will the, like, image of monarchy and the idea of it, will that always prevail? Like,
well, I think it's that thing of
her bowing to them all, and then do you think it made some of them think, like, is this the right thing to do? Like, are we doing the right thing? Like, did they feel guilt afterwards?
You would hope you would feel guilty about killing children, because it's not. It's all that whole, like... But I think it's questioning that divine right, isn't it? And there will be some people who intrinsically feel like this is God's representative on earth, and over time, the more kind of sectarian we become, we're like, literally, what is the point of you? It's birth. Like, you have been born into this circumstances.
Yeah.
And
there's no point of it anymore except for tourism.
Exactly.
They have nothing. They have no power.
They have no power.
We don't need them.
They're there for, like, this decorative position. So, because it's weird, because we've got a constitutional monarchy, haven't we? But they can't stop the democratic process.
Yeah. So, really, they are just there for tourism.
Yeah. So they shouldn't keep paying for all their... They should pay their own way. By now.
Honestly, I just don't, like... I get that... I'm in two minds. Like, I don't have a family... You know, people grow up with, like, people who watch the Queen's speech at Christmas, and they have a very, like... yay, monarchy sort of thing. They celebrate when the people get married, and I never really had that. And then my school was Quaker, and because they don't believe in divine right of kings, they don't believe in the monarchy. So
it's fairly fundamental,
Yeah, you know how, like, if the Queen dies, everyone gets a day off work school, like, because you have to go into mourning. Yeah, if you're a Quaker. Like, if we go to a Quaker school, they don't do that because they don't believe in it. So I've never been like, monarchy. It's not that, I mean, I probably would say I'm anti-monarchy, but it wasn't that I was growing up with people being like, monarchy are the worst. I just didn't see the point of them.
I did grow up with a voice not in my ear, it was my mother being like, anti-establishment. Wanted to abolish the monarchy.
But I would say that now, but then I see the point of, like, think about however many people come to England because they don't have a monarchy at all, and they just find it insane that we still do. Because if you really think about it, it is really weird that we do. And that is kind of cool. But I don't think they should take our money.
No.
But I do think there is... If we just had the Queen...
I think, if you have the reigning monarch... And whoever was going to... If we had to keep it, have the reigning monarch and the one that was in direct succession, everyone else has to pay their own way. They can't be I think it's when it's all the extended, like, Eugenie or whatever they're called, like, all those little...
But even at this point, like, if Harry was getting any money, I'd be like, but why? Like,
yeah.
You're not, like...
You're
not in a bad
nothing.
way, but you are nothing!
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, why am I expected to... Is this treason?
No.
But,
I don't think
okay,
treason doesn't exist, does it?
Okay, good.
Can you still get tried for treason?
I don't know. Okay,
It's probably against the state rather than the head of state.
What I'm going to say is, like, why is Harry of more value than anyone, you know?
He's not.
But why are any of them of more value? But, like, Harry, who, like, went to Eton and, you know, dressed up as Hitler, lest we forget, did a bunch of dodgy things, and then, like, oh, he was in the army for a bit, so, like, oh, cute.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-Harry. Like, I'm not saying Harry seems like the best out of a bad bunch, but even he, who, you know, did all these bad things, had the most privileged life, and yes, seems to be semi-aware of that. But, like, why should I value his life any more than...
Why are we still invested?
Why are we giving him money?
Yeah, why?
Why does he get money?
He did pay back. I mean, I really couldn't care less about any of the royals, but they did pay back the money they had for the renovation of their cottage in the UK very recently.
But, like, why did they renovate it?
It was like a £6 million renovation or something on taxpayers' money.
That's what I mean. Like, that seems so disillusioned to me that, like, I get, okay, they paid it back. But, like, why in the first place did they take the money?
Yeah.
Why was that a necessity to renovate the $6 million cottage? I'm sorry, I just don't get it.
I know, I think it's weird because when you look at the history, you're like, oh my god, these are the institutions that are still kicking around today.
Yeah.
And why do they exist? And, like, to be fair, for all how anti-royalist my mother is, we have watched The Crown on Netflix. And it's really good.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
It's really, it's, like, interesting because it's living history and she's not dead yet. So she's still alive as they're, like, doing this biopic about her.
It's awkward when they do those sort of things. You remember they did it's very different, but they did one on Cilla Black while she was still alive, and I found that weird, because do you watch it and think, oh, that's nothing like me?
Yeah, like, how involved, how much does it have to get, like, past? I don't know, if the person's still alive, then how truthful can it be? Because obviously it's still a perception of somebody.
Have you seen all the seasons of it?
Yeah.
I've not seen it, but, like, from what I heard, don't they make Charles a more likeable character than I think people have ever thought him to be?
No, I think they've softened him a little bit, but he still is, like, this insufferable dinosaur, even when he's young.
I will say, don't like the royalty, but I do have some, like, allegiance to... Is it Anne?
Yeah, I think if you were going to have any...
like
Anne. Princess Anne was... She didn't give any of her children titles.
Legend.
So...
She was being kidnapped or
whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, they tried to kidnap her and she was just like, no. No,
I'm not doing
it. Not.
So, I think there are people to be admired in the...
Well, what I've noticed is, I mean, I hate to be sexist, but the women seem to do a better job and they're more likeable. So, like, why, so many years only the men could lead.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make it so the English royal family, only the women can lead?
Because they last for a long time.
Yeah, they do. You get your money's worth. It's just something that, like, I don't think the monarchy will end, at least in my lifetime.
No.
I just can't see that happening. Sorry to be a pessimist, I don't think it will. But it does make me sad that if I have children, they're going to have to, like, live with a king instead of a queen.
Yeah, and that's all my parents have known. That's mainly what my and, like, my parents are, like, kind of generation before other people's parents, because they're slightly older. So, like, that's, like, 3 generations have only known there being a queen.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like just generally being neutral about them, but also being, like, questioning it. I think you can not care about them.
I think yeah.
But also still be like, have an opinion.
Like a neutral anti-monarchist, you know? Like a
chaotic neutral anti-monarchist.
Yeah, a chaotic neutral. Like, I wouldn't like, okay, so say the Queen walks up to me and she's like, hey, I'm not going to be like, F you. Go back to London. Like, I'm not going to be that bad. But if someone was like, oh, you can go meet the Queen, I'd probably be like, why? I don't really want to.
Would you not?
Like,
Would you not get...
No, because, like, the amount of effort to, like... Right, I am intrinsically not someone who is good at following instructions. And when you meet the Queen, they tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And exactly how to act, and exactly when to bow, and all this stuff. And I would not remember it.
It's just too...
And I would somehow commit treason. And it's not worth it.
Do you want to know, actually, I'm not going to pretend I've just remembered this, because it's quite a big thing in our family history.
You met the Queen?
I haven't met the Queen, but my dad has.
Why?
So my dad's dad was a policeman, and I think he got into, like, he switched himself for a hostage when a guy had a gun in a car or something.
Oh, cute.
I mean, it's
cute.
It's Ayrshire. I don't know what was going on at that point, but he got, like, a medal for police bravery. And
which is pretty good.
They all got to go down to Buckingham Palace to be there while he accepted the award, except my great-gran, who they didn't let in because they had too many people, and she had to sit outside the gate waiting for them. Well, her son, they didn't let her in.
That's terrible. What?
And they've come down from Scotland to...
You think they'd just let her in?
Yeah, just let her in. Anyway, so that's my...
I mean, my closest I've got to meeting her is we went to the opening of the new Scottish Parliament when I was like...
Did you?
4. Yes. And...
Why?
I don't know, maybe we were in Scotland,
when it
maybe,
happened, okay.
And it just happened to be... I don't know if we went down specifically to it, but I doubt it. And, so there was like a big procession, and the Queen was there. And I remember it because we were waiting outside to see her drive past. I don't remember seeing her. My brother does, I have no memory. But I do remember my mum saying to me, just so you're not disappointed, the princesses you see are not like the ones you're thinking of. And I was like, what? And she was like, they're not going to be in big ball gowns, and they're not going to... And I was so disappointed. I think maybe that's where my anti-monarchy feelings came from, because I felt so betrayed that I just had to watch these boring people come by in a little fascinator. And, oh my god, what's his name? I'm going to offend this man twice. Who is the most famous James Bond? Sean Connery.
Yes.
Sean Connery was there, and my dad tells the story that I full-on bumped into Sean Connery and was like, what are you going to do about it? No one else thinks this is true.
Where was he? Where did you bump into him, supposedly?
No idea. I don't remember it. But I guess part of the procession I was wondering about... He's like stood there watching it. I'm wondering about... I mean, he probably was there and we probably did see him. Did I ram into him in the way my father tells the story? Probably not.
How old were you?
4, maybe. No, 4 or 5, because I remember... there's people playing the bagpipes, and I bought their CD, or like my parents bought it for me, and I took it to show and tell.
Incredible.
So I was like, this is my bagpipe CD.
Did you listen to it?
And I've still got it.
Did you listen to it after you bought it?
Probably not.
Yeah, because that's so... it's fine when you hear bagpipes, it's like, if you're in Scotland.
Yeah.
If you hear bagpipes outside of Scotland, you're like, why? What are you doing? But if you hear it or it's at a wedding, it's like, fair enough.
Lovely.
You can deal with it. However, to be as committed as you were to buy a bagpipe CD of just bagpipe music.
Yeah, I still have it. Maybe I should start listening to it.
You should send me a record. Send me your favourite bagpipe
Okay, I'll play
tune.
it because I can't remember what's on it. I'll play it. Hopefully it's not cracked or anything. But I remember it was the early 2000s, so I had this blue CD holder.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
It was very 2000. Yeah. I mean, they're completely obsolete now because people don't use CDs. But I had my CDs stacked in my room, and there was like all the Busted CDs, because I love Busted, and probably like Pop Party, all of those, and then just this bagpipe CD. I was a girl of range, you know?
Yeah.
I had range. Probably Avril Lavigne eventually made her way on there, but the bagpipes stayed.
Pride of place.
So people that knew my roots. So, yeah, now it's just in a box. Because I'm embarrassed. Embarrassed of that day. That I was thinking there was going to be... And I think on that day, I bought a princess hat from, you know, it's like a really pointy one, almost like a witch's hat, and it was pink, and it had like a veil that came down.
Oh, like kind of, was it like medievally?
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, I think I had one.
I wore it to like a World Book Day or like one of those sort of days, and someone was like, "Why have you come as a witch?" And I was so offended.
It's pink, for one.
I was like, "It's a princess hat. Are you blind?
Oh,
do you know nothing?"
I nearly bought a face mask that had like kind of skeletons. Not in like, it was like done tastefully. It had flowers.
You can't see Holly, but she is a massive goth. She got dyed black hair, just massive black eyeliner, black lipstick, loves skeletons.
I am sitting
loves death,
in a pink room, surrounded by pink and blue things.
Sort of like silky shirt,
yeah,
sort of thing. What? Yeah, in a like a nice little baby blue flowy shirt. And there she is, gonna buy a skeleton
just for Halloween, no other season.
Although you do have your little, don't you have your little earrings that have a hand on them?
Oh yeah, I've got.
I always really like
spooky
them.
earrings.
I always do think they're like they're a bit spooky.
A little bit, ooh, not quite as flowery as usual.
That's a bit of insight. Oh, you know what? Let's end today's on a fun fact from Holly. So, last time I asked Holly for a fun fact, she just gave me a random fun fact. So today I'll just ask her a question and hope she realises it's about her and not the world in general. So, let's... on the topic of CDs...
Yes.
What would you say was either, or both, your first CD or your, like, favourite band or singer as a child?
Oh, okay. I think the first CD I had was Pop Party 2.
Loved it. Loved Pop Party.
Because I think it was that the one with there was one with a red cover and it had like a yellow paint splatter. I think that was Pop Party 2.
Yeah.
My favourite singer as a child was either Amy Winehouse because it was played a lot. She was...
very edgy.
But my mum hoped that I would never ask what the lyrics meant.
Listening to them now, I can understand why she thought you. She hoped for that.
She was like, I hope you just enjoyed good music, but you didn't ask me what anything meant, because that would have been a conversation we didn't want to have. But I'm thinking of my favourite CD that I used to listen to after I got over my High School Musical phases. I used to listen to the whole of High School Musical 2 soundtrack before I went to bed. And then, 2008, Mamma Mia soundtrack came out, and it was my bedtime. That was my favourite CD.
Why does that sound, like, so accurate to my life as well? Because I feel like I remember doing this with the Camp Rock soundtrack, where I would sit in bed, I would listen to it, and I would read the lyrics in the little booklet that came with it. And, like, so I would know all the words as well. So why is that?
Why did we do that?
I didn't have the Mamma Mia soundtrack, but we had the ABBA Gold soundtrack.
Oh, amazing.
The best one, because it's got all the greatest hits on. And I would just listen to that on my Sony Walkman.
We're Gen Z, I promise. We're just...
I don't know why I just tried to be older than I was. And I would listen to it on my Sony Walkman, and you know, like the long journeys to Scotland.
Yes.
I'm sure you've had to sit through these, but I feel like I had to sit through a lot of them as a child.
Yes.
So I was trying to entertain myself. One of the things I would do is listen to a song and write the lyrics down, because I feel like this was... I hadn't realised maybe you could Google the lyrics. So I wrote down the lyrics, and I remember doing it to Mamma Mia, and couldn't figure out... You know when it says, I've been angry and sad?
Yeah.
Couldn't figure out that it was angry and sad. And I must have listened to that line over and over again. I thought it was one word. I thought it was
angry inside,
angry sad, or something. And now I listen to it and I think, why was that so hard to grasp?
I love that. I love that's a universal experience. I feel like, yeah,
that it went like High School Musical 2. I feel like Hairspray. Then I got into Hairspray because Zac Efron did Hairspray.
I never had the Hairspray soundtrack, but I did love Hairspray.
I did, because I think that's why I know a couple of other songs from Hairspray. I guess they're in the musical, actual musical. And I'm always surprised when they're not in the movie because I think they were like extras
at the end. It was in the credits,
and they are, and they're in the CD as well. So sometimes I'm always waiting for them. They never happen. So Hairspray, then like Camp Rock, and then Mamma Mia, or it was some order like that.
And then I think I started.
Did you have a CD player?
Yeah, in my bedroom.
Was it? What did it look like?
It was pink and round.
Was it pink and white?
Yeah.
Oh. Did we have the same one?
It was like a little round little thing. And it had, you pressed the top bit and the, Did we have the same CD player?
I had that one. And I think mine came with a hairdryer as well.
Oh.
I don't know why it came with a hairdryer, but it was like a 2-for-1 and it was the same pattern.
I love that. Mine never came with a hairdryer.
But I know so many people who had that little pink one.
Yeah.
And wait, so what happened after Mamma Mia?
I think I started, that was my like Lady Gaga, I found iTunes phase. So I stopped listening to CDs.
I hadn't found iTunes, but I got very into HMV.
Yeah, or listening to the Now, That's What I Call Music.
Yeah.
So I bought a lot of them.
I think I got very into Lady Gaga and Beyonce at the same time.
Beyonce, like Halo.
I had
that
Sasha
kind of...
Fierce, that CD, and like the first Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Oh no, the second Lady Gaga one. Can't remember what it was called.
Yes.
Monster?
I think it was the one with not Just Dance, the one after Just Dance.
The one after Just Dance. I had that. And then I got into Rihanna. And then, I became a teenager and had different musics. But they I feel, speak to the early 2000s for me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, that was just fun. That's how we end this podcast now. Fun fact from Holly, and hope she tells one about herself. Instead of just deciding to
trivia,
tell one about someone else or trivia. So now you know something about Holly.
I can ask you a fun fact next week. Keep it.
No, only you. No, I talk enough. We do you.
Okay.
We do you.
We do you.
Okay. We do you. Little Russell ladies saying goodbye.
We're signing off today.
Signing off.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yes. Okay.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye.